Well, all this week we've been talking about really kind of the difference that Christ makes in our life. And one of the things that Paul is really trying to explain and clarify in these first couple of chapters of the letter to the Ephesians is that although we have been chosen by God and given a special place in his eyes, that we're more precious to him than anything else that exists in the universe, that we are his children. We are created to learn to become part of his likeness. And what sin did was took the image of God and really smeared basically feces all over it and made it ugly and stinking. And Christ came and he washed and cleansed us with his precious blood. And this is the message. But yet many of us have really kind of hung out in the sewer before we got saved, and we look back now with great regret. And sometimes Christians can allow themselves to be defined by the things they regret. I wish I hadn't done this, and I wish I hadn't done that. But the wonderful thing of God's redemptive work is he takes all of those regretful things and he has a way of transforming them into redemptive things. So we move from regret to redemption, and it produces a change in our life. And one of the changes that he brings about is he teaches us how to live in unity with the community of believers that we're part of. And we went into that a great deal yesterday, because this idea that the hostility that often exists between people is really, really a destructive thing. It never brings anything good. It's interesting, the Roman Empire used to talk about the Roman peace, the Pax Romana, the idea that they understood that when there's wars are costly and they destroy, and everybody's economy goes downhill. If I look back on the 4 years that Trump was in office, it's kind of amazing because for 4 years we weren't involved in a war. The first time I can remember in most of my life. And it was like, in Afghanistan, there wasn't a single American who died in Afghanistan in those 4 years that Trump was in office. So what happened? We saw the economy surged in many ways. If at least for one part, we weren't at war. We weren't spending such treasure on trying to fight these expensive battles. Well, the thing we need to realize is that if we have conflicts and hostilities towards other people, they're going to take a toll on us. They take a toll on us economically, they take a toll on us emotionally, but they also take a toll on us spiritually. They make the church incapable of functioning according to what God has purposed it, to be one body working together to fulfill the plan that God has for his church and for you and I individually. And that's why he says that, well, even though he said in verse 17 that he came and preached peace to you who were far away and peace to those who were near. So he says the Jews were nearer to God than were the Gentiles, but he preached peace to them, that they would have peace between them. And here's the interesting thing, the conflict between the Jew and the Gentile was the Jews looked at the Gentiles' immorality, and they hated them because of their immoral lifestyle. And because they were violating and dishonoring God and blaspheming his holy name. And when Christ came, suddenly these blasphemous, sinful Gentiles got saved and began to want to walk after God. And the Jews were trying to say, well, you have to become Jews also. You can't just become a Christian, you also got to become a Jew. And Paul's whole argument was that if Christ has cleansed us from our sins, we're clean. There is nothing that we can add to it. And the deception is to think that once I'm saved, now I've got to earn the salvation that is already given to me. What I need to do is to live in the salvation that has been given to me, enjoy and rejoice in it, because sin has its own rewards and they're very ugly. But so does faithfulness have its own reward, that when I walk with God, he blesses my life. And the temptation that the devil uses more than anything else, we think, well, he's trying to tempt us with sexual immorality and all these other things. And I'm not saying he doesn't do that. But what he's found more effective is if he can get Christians to hate each other's guts, then he's really accomplished something. So the Catholics hate Protestants and vice versa. And on it goes with vaxxers hate non-vaxxers and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying there isn't conversation that needs to take place there. And I'm not saying that people can have wrong views. But the whole point is that if we allow hostility to arise between us as followers of Christ, then we've really missed the point. Because what we really miss out, and these are the two kinds of peace that are available to us. We have, first of all, peace with God. In Romans 5, Paul put it this way. It says, therefore, since we have been justified through faith, in other words, declared innocent and free from all past guilt because of our faith in the person of Jesus Christ, And he says, we have peace with God. We're no longer at odds with God. We're no longer separated with God. We've been brought close and intimate with him. We can come, as the writer of Hebrews said, boldly into his throne of grace. In other words, we come with a confidence that we're welcome. You ever been invited someplace that you don't know anybody and you step in there and you feel like, I wonder if I'm welcome here? And if somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I'm so glad to see you, or I'd like to get to know you, it just changes your whole emotional response, because suddenly you sense, I feel like these people believe that I belong and therefore I am part of, and I'm embraced into their community, into their fellowship. Well, many of us still struggle because even though Christ has come into our life, we feel like we still don't belong. And I'm just saying, that's your problem. It's not any else. They would say, well, this church is just so unloving. And I'm not saying that sometimes churches aren't unloving. But the whole point is that oftentimes is more about how you feel than it may be about how other people feel. And it becomes key that we begin by saying, I have peace with God. I've been invited into his family, and I have peace with my Lord Jesus Christ. And he says, I realize, he goes on to say in Romans chapter 5, through whom we have gained access by faith into his grace in which we now stand. So the first and foremost thing that we need to get, if we're going to live in peaceful relationship with other people, is that we are at peace with God. There's no longer any battles to fight. God isn't looking at you with a scowl. He's looking at you with great love and compassion and joy. As we talked about the first day, about how, last Monday, about how that his thoughts are more than the sands of the sea, which are innumerable and can't even be counted. And their thoughts of love and compassion and goodness and kindness, he is fabulously in love with you. If you can just realize that God is fabulously in love with you, that when you have that knowledge, there's an internal peace that we begin. And that becomes a key to being at peace with other people. Because once I know that God is on my side and I'm on the side of God who wins always, then therefore I don't have to become all jammed up inside about other people who do bad things or who don't think properly. Whenever I hear a Christian saying, I'm angry with the church, I feel like saying, bro, you need to realize that you're giving a foothold to Satan into your heart by even saying that. What you need to see is, I'm not saying that our brothers and sisters don't do things that are wrong and frustrated, or even hurtful, even betrayals, but we need to be quick to forgive. We need to come to that place saying, God, forgive them for what they do, because if they really understood your heart, they wouldn't have done that. And because I want to know your heart, help me to forgive them. It's hard to get away from the fact when Jesus was hanging on the cross and he saw these soldiers gambling for his cloak and his garments. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. That Jesus, he knew that there was consequences that were to come to their bad behavior. And when somebody does something bad to you, there are consequences they're going to reap because of that. So God will take care of it. He's the one, he says, do not seek to avenge yourself. Vengeance is mine, saying the Lord. But what you need to really pray is, God, help me to forgive them for what they do. Because when you do that, you're releasing the power of God to really begin to address that issue in their life. And you don't have to worry about it being settled. God promises over and over again his word that he will settle that issue with them. But you're free. You have peace with God, and therefore you can be at peace with other people. Somebody wrote me and said, what do you have against so-and-so? And I said, I don't have anything against so-and-so. I don't even know where you came up with that. But this person was really angry at Christians for some reason. I don't know. I don't even really understand the battle, but you have to understand that that's a trap. Don't let yourself go that. I hear Christians saying and doing things I don't agree with, but I say, Lord, they're your servant. They have to answer to you. I'm not going to hold a grudge against them, because I know that you will work to bring them into that place. And if they don't get fixed and get rightly corrected, they may not even know you. And I need to pray that they can come to a saving relationship. But don't let other people's problems become your problems. Their lack of peace become your lack of peace. Let God deal with them. You know that you're a winner. You've overcome every challenge. One day you're going to stand in the presence of God, and if we look back at all, we'll look back and go, how silly it was of me to fret and worry about those things. He is on the throne. He's in control. Read Psalm 139 today, and you'll see it clearly stated that he is over everything, and you can let go of your angst and trust him to take care of stuff. Well, I've gone long. Forgive me for that. And we'll look forward to picking the conversation up next week. Go in his grace.